So next up we have Ricardo Menéndez March from the Green Party. He's been a Green MP since 2020 as a spokesperson on a number of portfolios, including health, immigration, rainbow communities, social development and commerce. He was formerly a co-convener of the Young Greens of Aotearoa, New Zealand, in 2016, and first stood for Parliament for the Greens in 2017. His media experience includes, I believe, working as a film projectionist before going into politics. Ricardo was born in Tijuana, Mexico, and he has experience of migrant advocacy work as community organizer and educator on poverty issues. So a very, very warm welcome to Ricardo.
Thank you so much. Kia ora koutou, really nice to join you tonight, and just want to acknowledge the advocacy that you do to ensure that we have a strong, independent, publicly owned and securely funded public media, something that the Green Party proudly supports. And I just want to say that we welcome the additional funding that the government has provided to public media, but we know, as in the previous corridor, that there is more we need to do to ensure that that security of funding isn't at the mercy of the government of today. And just want to put it on the record, the Green Party is very much open to the idea of having a levy to create that partisan funding stream. And I think particularly for our community and student media, I think that will also be really, really important. And I want to pay a shout out, actually, as somebody who comes from a migrant community, to the important work that our community media and radio stations play, particularly when disaster strikes. I think to what Miles was talking about in terms of the different incentives, target groups, and what drives commercial media versus public media, I saw it during the pandemic and the floods, how those community radio stations tried to mobilize to actually center the voices of specific communities that otherwise would have not been reached by commercial media, because there was no incentive for commercial media to center those communities that may be small, but would have been left out of the mainstream messages in terms of, for example, how to access support, how to access vaccination and other key public health messages. And so having that security of funding is key to having also a diversity of voices, which in and of itself strengthens our democracy, strengthens social cohesion. And I've been really disappointed, and I probably will join on the pylon on the National Party, but I've been really disappointed at how we were not able to, for multiple reasons, get the merger across. But I think the opposition from the National Party, which was very, very centered actually on dog whistle politics, was really unhelpful. And equally, when we talk about strengthening our Māori media, I saw how Melissa Lee preferred to actually pit our migrant community radio stations, for example, against Māori media. And actually, I thought that was a disservice actually to A, our te reti commitments to adequately fund Māori media, but B, that no one wins when we pit groups that are under-resourced and underfunded. That actually it's not an either or. We can have the revenue streams to secure decent funding for all levels of community and public media. So I think that's something the Green Party, thank you. That's something the Green Party will continue advocating for and fighting for. We do think the new legislation that is coming across that will enable better bargaining will be a step in the right direction. But we do echo the sentiments that actually we need a range of media that isn't just news media, and there is, particularly with the rise of podcasts, for example, becoming more and more popular, I think ensuring that those local voices can have access to secure funding is important, because I've seen the dangers of how a younger generation is growing consuming American commercial media, many of it, like with Andrew Tate and others, which is grounded on misogyny and white supremacy that doesn't reflect our own experiences, and actually people in Aotearoa deserve to have access to those local voices. And finally, while we fight for an partisan form of funding, for example, could be a levy or something else, I think we can't escape the fact that without tax reform on the agenda, those governments of today will nonetheless be restrained by very, very limited revenue sources to adequately fund our public services, which includes public media. And this is why the Greens will continue fighting for tax reform, so that while we work to have a partisan form of funding, that we don't use the excuses of a tight economic situation to then restrain funding for public media and other public services, as is already happening in the mainstream discourse. And funnily enough, commercial media echo sometimes those same arguments. So having that revenue stream in the form of tax reform will be also really the key to funding our public services, and the Greens will put that at the top of our agenda in any future government. Kia ora.